All right, we're back up and running. My apologies for the delay. All right, Ms. Erickson, do you have another witness, ma'am?
Your Honor, I have a few questions that I would continue with Mr. Tayala, just that were not confidential.
Excellent. And I would note for the record that Mr. Tayala was sworn and Ms. Erickson provided an attestation in the confidential session. So whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Right. Jesse, can you turn your camera back on? Good. Want to make sure you hadn't left in the 2 minutes we gave you. Mr. Baker raised in his direct testimony a few other questions that he had about the RFP process that I was hoping you could address in this hearing. So one was a concern about what steps UGI takes to ensure a neutral RFP. Could you speak to the process that UGI goes through to ensure that the RFP is a neutral process?
Absolutely. So the RFP process begins by developing a list of potential bidders. We use a revolving email list for potential companies or bidders that could provide service to any one of our requests for proposal. We update this throughout the year as new companies come in, contacts change, and there are new entrants into potentially providing service. So that generates our distribution list. We draft an RFP and typically distribute it via email to that list of potential bidders. The current list is approximately 75 companies or bidders. We give 30 days, typically 30 days, for bidders to evaluate and ask questions of the company, and we provide responses during that 30-day period. The responses that we provide to anyone asking questions are provided only to that company. They're not made public at that point. The assumption being that those that are not asking questions are familiar with the RFP and the terms and conditions are adequate for them to provide an evaluation. At the end of the 30-day period, the proposals received are evaluated by the company on an individual basis. We look at several factors, including the reliability. Obviously, providing firm service is of utmost importance, and least cost then follows that. That is generally how our RFP process is conducted anytime we're issuing an RFP.
There was an additional question in Mr. Baker's testimony about what additional negotiations UGI engages in after receiving RFP bids, including those who do not submit conforming bids but may have been cheaper. Is there any occasion in which UGI would engage in further negotiations after receiving bids, whether or not they were conforming?
There are some circumstances where we will negotiate, and most of those revolve around getting an understanding of if we have any confusion on what the bidder is proposing, or if we have any confusion on what they're providing in the terms of their proposal.
And so one of the concerns that Mr. Baker had raised was the unfortunate lack of interest in terms of responses to the RFPs. You sent out to a wide net of 75 and received a relatively small number of responses. What does UGI do to ensure that it's casting as wide a net as possible in order to get as many hopefully interested parties to respond to its RFPs?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we constantly are updating our list of potential bidders and distribution list for RFPs. At the beginning of each year in January, we also provide an advance notice of RFP, which provides our potential shortfall for supply, and that is distributed and made public on our energy management website. In addition to that, we also directly contact the interconnecting interstate pipelines to provide them advance notice as well, such that they have adequate time to prepare any RFP responses or include us in any expansion projects, which can take several years in order to develop.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sheehan.
I have no questions for the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Spivak?
I have no questions for the witness, Your Honor.
Nor do I. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time here today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Erickson, do you have another witness, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor. UGI would call Kim Basaninsky.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Can I get you to raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Can you please state your name and provide your business address, please?
Kimberly Basninsky, 1 UGI Drive, Denver, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Erickson, do you have an attestation, please?
Yes, Your Honor. I can attest that Ms. Basaninsky is in a separate room and is not in communication with any other individual during her testimony.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning. Have you reviewed the direct testimony prepared by Lucy Shea in this proceeding?
I have.
And are the calculations set forth in her testimony accurate to the best of your knowledge?
They are.
Ms. Shea's testimony notes that UGI made a correction to the allocation of costs that was discovered in the preparation of material for this hearing. Can you explain to us what happened and what the error was?
I can. While we were preparing data response 1-16 related to capacity release revenue, we did discover that in January 2021, there was a credit of $10,825 that should have been allocated to Maryland that was mistakenly booked to Pennsylvania. What had happened is the correction was done properly in terms of determining the amount, but an incorrect location code was used in the journal entry when posting as a result of a human error. On our side, both on the accounting side as well as my side on the rates, we have adjusted our review process to make sure this does not occur again.
I have no more questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sheehan?
I have no questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Spivak?
I have no questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, I have no questions either. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Erickson?
UGI has no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have anything further? All right, seeing none.
Well, Your Honor, if I may, I guess the
Yes.
only question or concern that I wanted to raise, which I didn't think was appropriate for the witness during the witness testimony, was the question about UGI preparing direct testimony. It is certainly unfortunate that we have had several instances now where these, some type of allocation error has been discovered as we're going through the process. To be quite candid, I don't think that direct testimony is going to fix that. I think there's already an appropriate process in place through the data requests, through witnesses appearing at the hearing, and that frankly, given what tends to be a fairly short compressed time period for responses to data requests, preparation of testimony, it seems to me that if there is last minute adjustment that needs to be made, that the time is better spent working directly with staff to ensure that the calculations are correct rather than preparing direct testimony. So I would request that that not be a requirement of UGI and that we, as we have in the past, be permitted to explain or answer any questions that are required at the hearing itself. They've always been very easily explained and very easily resolved.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Spivak, did you want to be heard on that? I imagine I'll just make a decision later, but since it was your witness who was making the recommendation, sir.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I do think that it is actually better to have mistakes explained directly by the company rather than having staff try to find and explain them. Although clearly, obviously, if Ms. Shea finds something, she can and will explain it in her testimony. But that said, I do think it's useful to have a direct explanation from the company. And frankly, just as we provide our testimony in advance so that other parties can see it and prepare to examine it, that would be helpful from the company's side as well. It's not going to make or break a case, but it would certainly be useful. One other thing I would like to add, I believe we do need to enter the certificate of publication of the record. I don't think that was done.
I think you're correct on that. And well, something you said, at least typically with these cases, the testimony submitted maybe, if we're lucky, 48 hours ahead of the schedule. So they're in a situation, where the company were to discover something, there probably wouldn't be time to submit written testimony. Would you agree with that, sir?
It depends on when the discovery is made. For instance,
Sure.
in this case, I think the discovery was made over the several weeks while we were doing discovery and Ms. Shea was preparing her testimony. So I think the company would have had the ability to prepare a few pages of written testimony.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Erickson, do you have the certificate?
I do, Your Honor. It has been filed. It was filed in advance of the hearing. The document is mail log 237961, but I'm more than happy to enter it into evidence, although I don't know that any party here has a copy of it. I can hold it up to the.
No, I'm sure that they've been following the official filings. Why don't we go ahead and mark that as UGI Exhibit 1? Any objection to entering that into the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right, UGI 1 is admitted. Thank you for that reminder, Mr. Spivak. And Ms. Erickson, if no rush on the data response. I'm going to wait till I get the transcript to do the order. So, whenever you get to it, I'm not overly concerned. I'm not concerned about the timing of it, ma'am. So I don't want you to stress about it.
And the only one, I believe you got the answer on the RNG contract. So it's just trying to determine which of the 7 contracts the missing party and identifying that one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Very well.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing further here, Your Honor.
Not
Okay,
from
great.
UGI, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you so much for everyone. And I hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday and New Year. Take care, everyone. We're off the record, Doug.
Thank you,
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. You too.
Thank you, Your Honor. You
Thank you,
too.
Your Honor.